Welcome to the SoLoMo Show, a weekly podcast hosted by Corey O'Brien, the social media strategist at Heat and author of thefutureofads.com.
And I'm Adam Helway, CEO of the digital marketing agency Secret Sushi Creative.
Each episode, we discuss the intersection of social, local, and mobile. Our goal is to help you understand these topics so you can integrate them into your marketing and advertising. Today is May 15th, 2012, and this is episode number 19.
In this episode, we'll be discussing new research on use of location-based services, Google's updated algorithms and how it might affect your SEO, new data on Google Plus usage, GM pulling their Facebook spend, shady social media tactics, and more.
Sounds like quite the exciting show, Adam.
Yes, we say that with such excitement now after an hour of wrestling with technical difficulties on our end due to Google's incredible technology that they released for their Hangouts, right?
Yeah, this was going to be the big episode, the debut of SoLoMo shows doing Google Plus Hangout on air broadcasting, and unfortunately, after quite a bit of wrestling with it, we figured out that we were unable to get the audio to both record locally and then broadcast into the on-air. And that throws up some challenge when we're actually trying to edit an episode, not just create one live via the on-air product. So, as we often say on this show, it's a bit of an experiment because we're always experimenting with things. And right now, Google Hangouts is definitely one of those early experiments. And so, like a lot of the people listening to this, you may be playing around with it and finding that, there's still some polish to be done on the application itself, or it doesn't quite fit into your own process, or maybe you're just still trying to figure out the way to get the most out of it. But we are learning along with you, and hopefully once we get this all sorted out, we'll have some good advice for ways to also make the most of Hangouts on air. But for now, we're back to the recording via Skype, and hopefully another good episode in the works, despite the fact that we're not broadcasting this in live.
Yeah, so we're starting about an hour later than usual for the first time, but I admire Corey's determination. He tried solidly for some time because the recording is on his end, and I know it'll work when we're not trying to do it, say, 15 minutes or so before the show. But he did end up testing a lot of the stuff out. It's just that one little inch, that one little final inch that for whatever reason Google's not the Hangouts are not acting like they should, huh?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, again, we've mentioned it a couple times on the show, but if you're going to be an early adopter of things, you've got to be willing to learn a lot of the lessons on your own, and you can't just go out there and find 10 how-to guides on exactly how to set it up or exactly how to make the most of it. So we're sort of forging ahead and trying to figure this out and make a go of it, and sometimes it's just not going to work the first try, but you got to stick with it because eventually it will work, and a little bit of determination can still make that early adopter thing that you're trying to get going work. It's just not going to be as smooth as maybe you would have hoped first off. So,
well, you might be the pioneer, right? You might be the one to try so hard to make it work in a way that others haven't really, of course you could just go on a Google and see, has somebody figured out the problem that you have? But in some cases that's not out there just yet. People are having the same problem, and that's what you ran into kind of in doing a little looking. But you may have the benefit of being the pioneer, the first person to make it work, and that's kind of always a nice thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, if we can get it going, I'll do my best to share how-tos so that other people can follow in our footsteps.
Well, cool. So then, let's dive in here with the first piece that we'd like to talk about today, which I believe is the Pew Research on location-based services, the uses of smartphones in conjunction with location-based services.
Yeah, so we covered a Pew Research study last week, and then, lo and behold, another great survey comes out this week as well, so I figured we'd talk about it. And really, there were just two interesting stats that came out of that survey. The first of which is that 74% of smartphone owners use their phone to get real-time location-based information. And that's a pretty broad description, so the number's going to be high. I think that includes things like looking up locations inside of a map and, obviously using things like Foursquare, but don't take that to mean, 74% of people are checking in on Foursquare. That's not quite what it means. It's a little broader
But
than
that's
that.
very related to what we talked about last week, right? Where they called it just in time information on the go. So some of this could be overlapping.
It definitely could be. It definitely could be. And the other thing to note from that stat is it's 74% of smartphone owners. So they're looking at people specifically that have the capability to look up real time location based information. It takes out the feature phone and the
All the people with dumb phones.
all the people with dumb phones. Exactly. It pulls those guys out and says basically, 3 out of 4 of your potential audience that could be looking up mobile information is doing so. So definitely a audience that's worth targeting. And the other stat that they put out was that 18% of smartphone owners use a geosocial service to check in to certain locations or share their location with friends. So this is the stat that specifically points at things like Foursquare or Facebook Places and actively checking in when you get to a location. And I was actually, I was happy with this number. I think that 18% is definitely a solid showing, given that we've reached a point, I think, especially with some of the changes that Foursquare has made recently, where businesses can get value out of these services even without check-ins. There's a lot of additional usages of the applications and ways that consumers are interacting with these programs and these applications beyond just the check-in. So I think the fact that 1 out of every 5 consumers is actually checking in is a good sign and shows that that behavior is increasing, not staying stagnant or decreasing.
Well, and there's quite the delta, right, between the 74% and the 18%. And so it shows that just the check-in aspect of location-based services, it's not just one-dimensional in that sense. There's other things that people are doing that are related to the context of their location with the smartphone.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to point out is oftentimes when we think of geosocial, we automatically jump to the Foursquares and the Facebook check-ins of the world and say, oh, well, that's kind of the only way people are using it. But really what this study is saying is people are using the data, they're just not necessarily checking in when they do so. So make sure, that to take those other steps to optimize the other types of interactions that people might be having with your business through some of these geosocial services. And I thought we could maybe run down a couple of those tips that we have for taking advantage of location-based services. So, Adam, do we have any tips that came to the top of your mind when you're reading this study that you might want to share?
Yeah, so in order to be present when folks are looking for location-based information related to your brand or business, you need to make sure that your data is accurate. So there's a lot of places that data could exist beyond, of course, say Foursquare, Facebook Places, Yelp, Google Places, a lot of other kind of more local location-based services. I think I forgot what the name of it is out here. A Merchant Circle and a number of others. And so you might want to check and see if there's any places on the web beyond those much kind of larger and broader ones that I just mentioned that your information should be there. Your address, of course, any other contextual information related to your location. Sometimes on Google Places and others, there's photos of your place's phone numbers, what time you're open, all those types of things. I mean, on Yelp, for instance, if the time that you're open is inaccurate, it will actually tell people that the place is closed, and it'll stand out in that way. And there's actually a way to do a search for places that are open at that particular time. And so you just want to make sure it's accurate and represents your company or business or brand or wherever that brick and mortar place is accurately.
Yeah, and in addition to making sure the information that's there is accurate, I would say put together a toolkit that's all the information you'd like those services to have, and then go out and figure out how to add additional information. Because I can't tell you how many times I've been frustrated by going to a Yelp site and, saying, oh, well, this is great. I want to check out more about this restaurant. And I look around to try to find their URL and it's not on the Yelp profile. And suddenly I'm in the land of Google searches and finding things that may or may not be the official site. And if each restaurant had just taken the time to go and confirm their details with Yelp and then add things like their URL and their hours and their address, it means that anybody who's looking for that information through Yelp doesn't have to go elsewhere. They can just find it right there, and it's increasing the chance that instead of just, spending the next 20 minutes hopping around Google, they're instead going to get in the car and head over to your establishment and actually, bridge that gap from the from the online into the offline world. So if it's not there, make sure that you add the appropriate information to really build out those profiles.
Yeah, and you may consider if you're a larger brand, for instance, that has multiple locations, even a smaller brand, but if you have multiple locations, you may consider creating some sort of style guide for folks. So whether those individual locations manage this sort of thing on their own, or whether you're going to manage it for them or have, a singular point of contact at your company manage that for them. Think about creating a style guide so that everybody is consistent with the information that they provide. Some of those folks who are managing it on their own for a particular location may not be aware or understand how to take care of that stuff on their own. And so it'd be great to maximize your presence by creating a style guide of this is the type of information we want, and these are these are suggested photos we should take, all those sorts of things. When it comes to the folks, the ones that are visiting, the regulars, you want to provide rewards or incentives for those particular individuals, and you can do so with platforms like, for instance, Foursquare, where for free you can go and you can actually set up a dashboard for incentivizing users for things like check-ins and provide them specials, for those who are the mayors of the locations or who check in with multiple people. So check and see of all those services what the incentives are. Facebook, for instance, as well has those sort of offers. Don't forget the casual users. What are your thoughts on the more casual folks rather than the ones who are the regulars, Corey?
Yeah, so I would say for the casual users, I think a lot of times people really think about the hardcore users when they're thinking of these geosocial services. So you're thinking of the guys that check in all the time and they share those check-ins, but really there are casual people that they'll either share their favorite locations or maybe they'll share, if something special happens. So if they're going to a movie theater and they want to kind of broadcast out the movie they're going to see or something like that. So keep those casual users in mind and don't just focus on the guys that are battling for mayor. The hardcore user is great and definitely put rewards in place to incentivize the people that are going for mayor and are publishing every check-in and really trying to boost that profile. But at the same time, there are these casual users that maybe are just looking up information or they're just sharing their check-in with a close circle of friends. So try to incentivize that as well and maybe publicize the fact that you've put your hours on something like Yelp or that you keep your hours on something like Foursquare and say, hey, don't forget when you're out and about, check us out on Foursquare. Even if you don't check in, at least know that we're there and we've got information for you.
Well, and in a simple way to address it, right, is there are too many people that when they become familiar with Foursquare focus on the mayor. And when they focus on the mayor, that's usually a horse race between just a handful of regular individuals. But those individuals are a small percentage of folks. Why not incentivize with, they have the multi-party check-in, right? Bring two friends with you and check in and get X, or do this and get Y. And so it's not about that being king of the mountain, which really can only have one person be king of the mountain. And you can't easily catch up to be king of the mountain unless you're a regular. It's just a whole different game. So incentivize regular folks with regular sorts of things, like just bring more people in and check in and get 10% off a deal. It would be a simple way of doing it. So take a look at the multitude of different ways you can incentivize somebody on again, something like, Foursquare. Each one has its own way of doing things, but when it comes to the check-in stuff, take a look at that on Foursquare. How do you motivate people to share? What's your recommendation on that, to share their experience at that location, or even like their check-in, which they could cross post elsewhere?
Right. I think there's two ways that I see it. The first is to just keep an open search for the phrasing that's going to accompany a share. So things like just checked in at, and just keep a search for that through places like Twitter. And when somebody does share that check in, make sure to follow up and say, hey, thanks for coming. Thanks for checking us out. We appreciate you, uh, bringing business to our company, and we hope you come back. We hope you had a good experience. And I think the second way would be to actually incentivize people. So, put a sign up that says, hey, if you share your check-in, show it to us and we'll give you 5% off, or we'll give you a free bagel, or we'll give you some sort of reward. And it doesn't have to be huge or, this huge financial burden on the company. But I think even just a little token of, hey, we appreciate that you're doing some free marketing for us. Here's something to show our appreciation, goes a long way to really encouraging people to maintain that behavior.
And I think the thing to notice about what Corey just said is that some of those things, you said a couple different things, and one of them is something that could be managed and automated by a service such as Foursquare, but the other is something that's a little bit more manual, right? So it takes a little bit of effort just to say, hey, can you show us your device and show us that you've checked in, or maybe even having something to monitor on your end. A computer on, or a mobile device that lets you monitor the Twitter feed, and you can see that they've checked in or something like that. But we're not advocating that that you do everything 100% based on what is available on Foursquare or whatever, proprietarily, if that's even a word there. But that you go beyond that a little bit and think of more creative ways that that you can keep folks engaged and interact with them. What do you think is the last tip that we could leave folks with here?
I'd say if I had to give one more takeaway, it would probably be that in addition to looking at these things as something that you can participate in and reward check-ins and the like, I think it's also just a great source of free data. So looking through check-ins and looking through the types of people that are checking in, how frequently, when they're checking in, whether or not they're sharing those check-ins, gives you a lot of data about the people that are coming to visit your business. So even just looking at some of the free data made available by Foursquare and by Facebook Places goes a long way towards getting a feel for, what is that customer that's coming in, what types of things are they sharing, what else are they interested in maybe, and how could you take advantage of that? So there's just a wealth of data associated with a lot of these services, and so make sure not to ignore that. Make sure to check it out and see the types of data that might be made available, and a lot of it is available even without an account. You can just kind of go in and view the publicly available check-in data. So I would say poke around in there a little bit and see what you can find, because you might be surprised with how interesting some of that data that they put out there is.
Exactly. And just to riff off of that and then move on to the next thing. I mean, do you know how many times somebody has checked in at any of your locations? That would be the simple question I would ask. And to look on all of these services have a way to, search for the pages, and usually those location pages display check-in data. I know specifically that Foursquare does. And so do you know how many times folks have checked in, what kind of information they might have shared, or what they've said on your places, on your specific place page? Those are things that you should check out and you should be aware of.
Definitely. So, Adam, there was a recent update to Google's search results, and it seems to have affected some people's rankings in terms of where they're placing on certain terms. So, maybe you can give us a quick rundown of the changes Google has released recently, and then how it might be affecting people's search engine optimization.
Yeah. And so last year, Google came out with an update called Panda. And it wasn't touted as much as kind of an update to the algorithm as it was kind of this sweeping, what do you want to say? They essentially kind of like activated it and did a scan of all the sites in their index, and actually took folks down a notch based on a number of different areas. And so, not to kind of go back to Panda, but just recently, a couple weeks ago, Google did another update that they call Penguin. I'm not sure why they like P so much, but they did a Penguin update. And, both of these updates are really doing what they can to kind of fight against a kind of two things. One, it would be considered spam, and I'll kind of dive into that just a second here. What I mean by that, so it's search engine spam and SEO spam, or bad SEO, and there's the term out there called negative SEO that people have been using lately much more. And then the other one is really related to it, is that it's about content quality. So the actual quality of content on a particular site, they're paying more attention to that than ever. So it's not just about having content present, it's actually grading the quality of content. So to quickly go over some of the things that they went over, um, they're calling, again, like web spam or search spam. We'll link to one of the many articles that are out there that is talking about this, but they're trying to fight against things like keyword stuffing. So putting too many keywords into your content. So the density of the keywords that you're trying to potentially rank for, you're just stuffing your content with it. For the sake of trying to rank higher. Well, Google sees that as once you get past a certain ratio of keywords in your content, it starts to be kind of what you would say, it's not human. They really have advocated for a while that most of that what you do, the content that you create and put on your website, should really be geared towards human beings, and you shouldn't be thinking too much about the bots, so to speak, or search engines. So I think they're moving in that direction a little bit more, of trying to think a little bit more about what human beings would actually want to consume in related to content. Also, link schemes. So link schemes meaning that you're paying folks to create links on external sites back to your website. They're able to detect the quality of those sites much better. And if those links back to you are really legitimate links, or if they were potentially, from folks that you paid, or somehow traded links with, or something like that. They're being much more discriminatory on that stuff. And a few of the other quick things are cloaking, and they call it sneaky redirects or doorway pages, and also purposefully duplicating content. And so there's some really interesting explanations about what most of those mean in the broader sense, but they're really looking at the quality of content on the sites that are linking to you, and then also the ratio and quality of content on your site itself. And so rather than trying to artificially cram as much stuff as you possibly can in there, and paying for what would be considered almost like false backlinking, they are fighting against that, and it's not going to be as useful for folks as it was in the past, when Google wasn't paying attention to this stuff that much. And so the short explanation of how to avoid this and how to work around this, again, really is to work on creating valuable, relevant content, making sure that the ratio of content on the page versus the content that may be repeated across your site. So for instance, if you have a large site that has templates that are being used frequently throughout your site, that it shouldn't be that 75 or 85% of that content on the right hand side and the right column, left column, above and down below is repeated, with only this small part in the middle that has different content, unique content on that page. Eventually, that looks both it looks, the value of that content, it looks poor to Google, and additionally, it's on the cusp of looking like duplicate content because of all the repeated elements on that page. And so you really want to work on having a nice ratio of unique content per page, making sure that the quality of the links coming from other sites is not from some sort of paid placement, and poor quality, poor page rank external sites, and that the general quality of your content is relevant. That you're not just stuffing and cramming stuff into your page. And I think Google is going to continue, whether it be annually or every 6 months or maybe every month, they're going to continue to make these updates to both their algorithm, and these sweeping updates that are going to really affect this content more in the direction of making sure that the quality of that content and incoming links are really high.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's basically their way of telling people, look, create content And sure, you can include some keywords and make sure to optimize the wording that you're using and the way that you're presenting yourself. But if it feels like it's a shady way of trying to boost your score on Google, it's probably going to get found out eventually and actually lower your score on Google. So just, don't try to do all these crazy schemes. And if you see some sort of, top 10 ranking overnight scheme, it's a scheme, and recognize it as such, and just keep putting out authentic content and, put out human readable content, and Google will acknowledge that and reward you with better placement inside of their search ranking. And one of the other things that they're actually taking into account is how content ranks on social media channels, and specifically Twitter. And so one of the stories that came out recently was a study done to look at how Twitter actually does affect Google rankings. And they found that, pretty easy to expect something like this, but it's always nice to see the data back it up. They found that the more a page is linked to on Twitter, the higher it ranks inside of Google. And that's regardless of what else is happening in the factors that Google takes into account. So leaving everything else the same, the more times a link is shared and exchanged and sent from user to user on Twitter, the better it's going to rank inside of Google, because Google is basically using that as a sign of quality. So again, quality content is going to win out. So just make sure that the stuff you're putting out there is optimized, but isn't optimized to the point of being, only built for a computer and not actually built for other humans to read and interact with it.
And we'll link to the story, especially on the Twitter one, which, as somebody, working with clients within social media, it's always nice, like you said, to see the data backing up that social is not a separate silo, and it does affect the folks who initially are a little skeptical on social and more bullish on the traditional, what they would consider traditional online traffic, the driver of traffic, which is search. So it's a great thing to see that, and I think that these are these are related. The Penguin update, what they're trying to achieve there, and then also the way that Twitter is ranking, and likely, of course, Google Plus, and down the road many other, I think, social channels that Google will start including in their indexing.
Yeah. So one of the things we've talked about in the past as a way of boosting your ranking inside of Google was actively using Google Plus. And another week, another story about how Google Plus continues to be a ghost town. So I thought we could revisit that discussion and see if it still makes sense to try to use Google Plus as a way of boosting search, even taking into account the fact that really the number of humans there continues to be extremely low, or if at this point smart marketers should just write it off and say, hey, look, we're going to focus our energy elsewhere. So to run through a couple of the numbers that were surfaced by this study, they found that the average post on Google Plus has less than 1+1 on it, less than 1 reply, and less than 1 reshare, which means that the average post that goes on there lives and dies by itself. Nobody's actually interacting with this thing. They also found that roughly 30% of users that make a public post never make a second one. They only make a single post. They try it out. They say, hey, this thing isn't for me, or I'm not seeing enough interaction, and they never make a public post again. And even those that do make public posts, they found that after making 5, there's still a 15% chance that you don't make a 6th, that 5th post is your final post and you never return to the site. So even people that are using it a couple of times and trying it out for extended periods are still kind of abandoning Google Plus or taking their content private. And then quickly, another couple stats are that among users who make publicly viewable posts, the average delay between each post is 12 days. And the average number of public posts that a person who makes public posts makes in each subsequent month declines steadily, a trend that is not improving. So basically, instead of people ramping up and posting more content as they get more involved with the site, they're actually posting less content, as it sort of, this idea of Google Plus being a ghost town seems to be building on itself. So taking all of that into account, Adam, what would you recommend our listeners do when it comes to Google Plus?
I'm still bullish on Google Plus. I mean, I don't deny I don't deny the metrics, but I think that they have the resources to tough it out over the long run, and it's going to take some interesting feature, some interesting revamp or something in order to really get people to shift. I think Facebook didn't grow to what it was overnight, and Facebook has a very different dynamic that it's trained people against, which is, if I'm a grandparent, I'm going to be on there to talk with my family, with my kids, and see my grandchildren's photos and such. And if I'm somebody who wants to check out friends that I haven't seen since high school or college, it's going to be one of those types of places where Google, again, is in that place right in between Twitter and Facebook, where you can still connect with friends, but you're also open to kind of the broader audience, like a Twitter would be. And so I think they're doing a better job of marketing the experience that you could have, say, on their commercials with Google Hangouts. There was a Muppets commercial that was incredible recently that was showing how folks could use the on-air Hangouts. Or maybe it wasn't the on-air ones, actually. Maybe it was the regular Hangouts with just the 10 people. And then they've been showing off their mobile app. And in fact, they updated their mobile app to make it a pretty incredible experience, which I'm sure you've probably updated your app. It was only, I think, this weekend that it happened. So all in all, I'm bullish on the future of Google Plus. I think the redeeming factor for brands at the moment is that it does factor into SEO. And that really is the biggest factor, is that Google Plus, because they've got the keys to that, it factors into SEO, and therefore by participating there in different shapes or forms, whether it be just having a brand page and posting content there, or having +1 buttons on your website, which essentially is not participating in Google Plus, but it's allowing folks who may potentially be Google Plus users, how frequent or infrequent that may be, to engage with Google Plus via your website, and flag your posts as important to them. And then I really think, and eventually we'll talk about this on a future episode when we get it all in gear. But yeah, I think Hangouts, to be honest, are a pretty killer feature, especially because they're connected to YouTube. So all in all, I think it's a place that brands should look if they have limited resources. It's not going to be a place where I would recommend that they spend a majority of their time by any means. But it's got some time before it fizzles away, like a Google Wave, or I don't even remember what the heck else that other social
Buzz, I think, is the word
Buzz.
you're
That's
looking
what it
for.
is. Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like they're holding search hostage as a way of forcing brands' hands into
I
Google
agree.
Plus.
I
It's
agree.
it's kind of rough, but at the same time, it's like, well, if that's the game they're going to play, then maybe you got to play the game. And so, I think playing that game might mean creating updates that are a little more targeted at just boosting your own search score versus engaging your audience. So, where on something like a Facebook page, you want to do things like polls and open ended questions and really try to get that audience engagement. On Google Plus, I think because the audience is so sparse and isn't checking the network with the frequency that they're checking these other channels, it's probably a place where you want to do more text-based updates, and you want to have updates that have more keywords in it and include links to things that you want to really highlight, and essentially build out your search profile and just use it as another tool to help you rank better in search and help you appear in more places when people are searching for things. So, like I said, including keywords and talking about topics related to your own industry means that if somebody searches for those topics, they're likely to come across your Google Plus post, which Google is trying to give a pretty prominent place inside of search results. So that's one way of looking at it, is saying, hey, if Google's going to play the game and say that we're going to kind of hold search results hostage in favor of Google Plus, then play the game right along with them and create content targeted towards that goal.
Yeah, and I mean, right now, how many times do you see a Facebook post showing up in Google? You don't, and you don't see content from Facebook showing up on search engines really at all. It's not a common thing that you find, and so all the efforts that you spend on Facebook are because you want to engage with that broad audience that are on Facebook. But if you have a lot of visitors, or your site is if search engine traffic is important, specifically Google traffic is important to your site, then of course Google Plus is a place that you should pay attention to and see how it connects to SEO. That's what I would recommend researching a bit more on your part to see where to spend your time so you're not wasting your time. So
I think that actually segues nicely into our next story of wasting time, which is a news story coming out of Wall Street Journal that said GM, General Motors, has decided to pull their Facebook efforts. And they're by no means small efforts. They were actually spending $40 million annually to maintain a Facebook presence, with a quarter or $10 million of that going towards paid advertising. And apparently they're just pulling it all. They're saying, hey, this thing doesn't work for us. It's not worth our time. It's not worth our money. We're going to focus our efforts elsewhere. And we're going to take our $40 million and go home. And I thought this was actually an interesting story because two things stood out. One, it's interesting to pull out entirely and say, this just isn't working, rather than saying, hey, maybe we overreached ourselves. Let's scale it back a little bit. Considering you're seeing companies like Ford, their major competitor, apparently have a lot of wins on Facebook. And so it feels a little bit like maybe they were just doing it wrong. But also just the split of money felt interesting to me. So they said, hey, we're spending $40 million annually, and $10 million of that is going towards paid advertising, which means that $30 million is going towards Facebook activities that aren't paid advertising related, which in my mind throws up a big red flag of, what the heck are you doing with all that money? Is it, $30 million worth of brand ambassadors? That seems a little crazy. So there might be more to this story than they're letting on, but I thought it was interesting just the fact that a very large company is pulling a very large budget out of Facebook because they're not able to get the results they were hoping for. What's your take on this story, Adam?
Well, I honestly didn't. When I tried to look at the post to get to the full one, it was asking me to have a membership for the Wall Street Journal. So I didn't get in the entire thing. But to me, kind of based on like what you just said and just looking at the story itself, I'd say it's really hard to get a return on investment when you're spending way too damn much money. I don't understand what they're spending that money on. And I would be disappointed too if I was spending this huge gob of money and going, well, what's the return that we're getting? It's hard to get a return on investment for that much money for a company like like Ford, for instance, where people aren't just running out in droves and buying hamburgers and so on. I mean, of course, they have higher dollar products with their vehicles. But I don't know. It just confuses me as to what they're going to be spending, because just like you said, that on 10%, one quarter of that is paid advertising. So what does that mean the rest is? I could understand if the ratio was a little bit higher in the paid advertising realm, then it would sound a little bit more like it makes sense. It doesn't still make sense to me that they're spending that much money, but that the ratio would be a little bit more appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. I'd say flip that, and you're probably on your way to being a more appropriate ratio. But I think, like you said, there's definitely ways to make it work, and making sure that your budget is appropriate to the channel is probably one good takeaway. So, I'm sure they've got other efforts going on elsewhere, but I think we've talked about this before a number of times, which is don't put all your eggs in one social basket. Make sure to spread your efforts out a little bit and reach those different audiences that like to hang out in different locations. And, you can shift budgets accordingly. If you're seeing something work over here and not over there, you can kind of move budget in that direction, but don't take everything and do one giant hurrah on Facebook and say, hey, this year we're spending millions of dollars and it's going to be a guaranteed return on investment because this Facebook thing is huge and everybody's using it. I think you still have to spend smart money on Facebook, and you still have to really have a strategy and have a plan in place for how you're going to get a return on that investment. You can't just dump money in and say, oh, well, brand loyalty alone is going to mean we're going to sell 100,000 more cars than we would have without this Facebook investment. So spend it smartly and don't overextend yourself without the plan or data to back it up.
I agree. I mean, that goes for anything, right? Beyond Facebook. So, in the essence of trying to always stay within an hour or less, as we've been trying to do since pretty much last week, we've got just a little bit more time. What do you feel like touching on?
I think we should jump into the shady social tactics because I think this is an interesting story and it's something that we've touched on a little bit in the past, but it's really, in my mind, coming to a head in the next couple
Specifically,
weeks.
SoCalcam, right? Right. You said shady social tactics, which sounds like a really cool video game or something like that. But it's a shady social cam. So social cam specifically, right?
Yeah, so shady social cam tactics that they've been using to boost their own app.
Remind folks what social cam is again.
All right, we'll reset this whole story. So basically, SocialCam is a application. It has both a Facebook component and a mobile component, and it started as the Instagram for video, or an Instagram made of videos, and it was a way of sharing mobile videos from user to user. But they also had this video viewing integration, which I slow down a little bit because it's hard for me to even grasp exactly how they're tying this all together. It seems very strange, which is part of what I think this story gets into. So, in addition to being able to record your own videos and share those with people, they actually have a Facebook Open Graph application that houses videos as sort of a mini YouTube. And then when you watch these videos, it gets broadcast out to your network that says, hey, Corey watched this video, you should too, click here. And when the user clicks here, they're then prompted to install the SocialCam app, and then if they do so, any video that they watch gets broadcast out to their network as well. So in the past couple of weeks, SocialCam has just seen this monumental growth. It's been literally adding millions of users every day to their network, and hockey stick growth. It's unbelievable. But at the same time, it feels like it's being supported by these really shady tactics. And when I say that, they're integrated in YouTube, what they're basically doing is scraping YouTube videos into the SocialCam application. And then if you watch one of these videos, it broadcasts it out as if some SocialCam user had created it, or one of the SocialCam, admins had distributed this video, and really all it is just a SocialCam layer on top of YouTube that they're then taking credit for inside of Facebook. So really an interesting story, a lot that's going on here. I think it brings into it a lot of questions about Facebook Open Graph and how brands are either taking advantage of it or maybe misusing Facebook Open Graph. It brings in things like repurposing content, which I think there's been a lot of debate about in the past, whether it's appropriate to reuse other people's content for your own gain or to what degree you can do so. There's things like, users thinking that they've turned off social sharing, and then when you close the app and reopen it, it turns it back on and then kind of hides that setting from you. So it's doing deceptive things to promote itself, which actually reminds me a lot of the Google search ranking story that we just talked about, where, doing deceptive things is eventually going to get caught and you're going to get called out for it, and it will have an overall negative effect on your brand. So a lot going on with this story, and maybe I've talked for a little too long, so I'll hand it over to you, Adam, and get your take on it. But I think this is an interesting issue for a number of different fronts.
Yeah, I don't remember if we talked about it after we kind of stopped recording last week or the week before, or if it was during the show. But I remember we talked about video and social cam and ways that brands could potentially dive in and use it because of the groundswell of folks signing up for it, particularly because there was this comparison to Instagram, which of course had been acquired for a great deal of money by Facebook, and so that was so public that it kind of fueled the fire for these other apps, saying, well, who's going to be next for this particular mobile-to-mobile social application community of folks doing video now? And so I think I had mentioned that I didn't really like the fact that I had found that if I had watched a video that on my mobile device, that somehow that just suddenly it would appear and say that Adam had watched this particular video on Facebook, and that there's a setting on there that allows you to turn that off, or it looks like it's supposed to turn it off. And when I turned it off, it kept sharing it, and so what's happened is I don't know about you, but I've actually seen other users, other Facebook friends of mine, inadvertently, it's displayed that they've been watching potentially risque content that has been fed to SoCalCam via Facebook, excuse me, via YouTube. So again, there's multiple things like you said going on. Not to completely, repeat what you're saying, but whereas Instagram was completely whatever content that is produced on Instagram is content that is produced on Instagram. It's a photo shared via an Instagram user on an Instagram app from a mobile device. SoCalCam, for whatever reason, somehow is feeding content in from external. So a couple weeks ago, the latest Batman video, Dark Knight Rises trailer or whatever it was, came out on YouTube, and for some reason it was shared on SoCalCam, and I watched it, and it ended up resharing it on my SoCalCam, both on my mobile device and also on Facebook. And so, I mean, that's just one dimension to it. There's a video that we'll have in our show notes that shows a guy who displays on the video. He shows exactly what happens when he turns this social sharing off. He turns the app back on, and suddenly the social sharing turns back on. And not only that, just like you alluded to earlier, it displays that it suddenly, after about 10 seconds, covers that button with the SoCalCam logo. It's not a UI element where you can completely tell what's going on, and then you go, oh, there must be something here. I'll touch it and it will reveal it. That's not how it happens. It's completely concealing that. And so I think a couple things that's going to possibly happen. I think Facebook is going to put their foot down. I hope, because I think that they're abusing the social graph on Facebook. They may have some issues with YouTube, but I don't think it's anything we'll necessarily hear about unless it really comes out and makes a splash PR wise. I think there may be some bad PR or some bad brand connotation with SoCalCam, which will affect obviously how people feel about consuming content from SoCalCam, because through Facebook, the popularity of it has grown, but through Facebook, so can the bad press.
Yep.
I think I shared the video of the guy showing that shady stuff going on, and I said my own 2 cents on Facebook just today, and easily had 3 or 4 people comment about how it convinced them why they shouldn't use SoCalCam.
Yeah, definitely.
So at any rate, it is not it's not going down the right road. Users are starting to get a little savvy about it. I think the average person who jumps on board and uses it may not realize what's going on, and it will be embarrassing, I think, for some folks who don't realize how to turn it off, and then suddenly some YouTube video of some girl dancing in her bikini shows up. It's too tempting for you to watch, so you go and you watch it, and then suddenly it tells all your Facebook folks that you're watching this video. It's just not good stuff for users all the way around. And although you as a brand could share your content on there and, not a big deal, I think there's alternatives in addition to the fact that if you want to share content on Facebook, take video of it on your mobile device or use a mobile device to shoot the video and share it directly on Facebook with your mobile device. You don't need a third party. SoCalCam as a community was really what we were recommending to leverage because of the tremendous growth.
Yeah, and it lends itself nicely to the nickname social spam, which I've seen floating around a little bit.
Or social scam or whatever.
Social scam, also a good one. And I think just, there seems to be, as quickly as the network grew a couple weeks ago, the backlash is growing. And you're even hearing people talk about it offline. They're saying, oh, SoCalCam seems too much right now. And I saw people oversharing, and I'm turning it off, and I'm just tired of it. So, unlike Instagram, which throughout its growth phase, I would have easily recommended it to any brand and said, look, this is a great network. You should be definitely participating.
Will, right?
And still will. I still recommend brands get involved with Instagram. I think SoCalCam, despite the headlines you might be seeing of millions of users added and it's the next best thing, I would say avoid it for now, because there's a lot of potential negative PR that's going to come out in the next few weeks. And there's alternatives, like you said. I think that Vidi has sort of skated by, and I still stand by the fact that I think Vidi has a more pure intention to become just the Instagram of video. And it's kind of growing in the background because Socialcam has really taken a lot of the headlines recently. But Vidi, despite not being in the headlines every week, still has millions of users and still is a growing network. So if mobile video is something you're looking to experiment with, by all means, test out Vidi and see what's going on there. But I would say Socialcam is definitely something I'd avoid for the next few weeks and just see how things play out, especially as Facebook is probably using this as a test case for what people are willing to endure when it comes to Open Graph.
Yep, sure thing.
All right, so what do you say we wrap this one up, Adam?
Wrapping it up and putting a bow on it.
Well, we had quite a few issues with this episode to try to get a good recording, so we appreciate everybody that has stuck with us. We hope to have a lot of these sorted out by next episode, and hopefully next episode will be our debuting of Google Hangouts on air as well. So check that out next week to see if we manage to scrape everything together and get it working correctly. But as always, we are greatly appreciative of everybody that listens to the show, and we love the fact that you're listening to us and hopefully getting some value out of the things that we share with you. If we had one request, it would be that you give us a rating inside of iTunes, which can be done just by searching for SoLoMo Show on iTunes and clicking 1 to 5 stars and maybe typing up a little bit.
Clicking 4 to 5 stars.
I'm sorry, clicking 4 to 5 stars, the Atom scale, and just writing a little bit about what you think about the show. It definitely helps us to get the word out there about the show, build the audience, and it helps us, and we hope that we're able to help you, so it's kind of a reciprocal thing we got going there. There's a couple of ways to get in touch with us if you'd like, and we encourage you to do so for anything from asking questions, suggesting topics, and giving feedback, all the way to just saying hi. Feel free to reach out if you just want to say hello and introduce yourself and let us know what you think of the show.
Hi, I just gave you 4 to 5 stars.
Exactly, that would be a perfect introductory email.
Yes.
So, a number of ways to reach us, the first of which would be via Twitter. You can reach the show at SoLoMo Show, or you can reach myself directly. I'm at Corey O'Brien.
And I'm at Secret Sushi.
We also have pages on Facebook, Google+, and Pinterest, which can be found by searching for SoLoMo Show on those respective places. And if you want to reach us by email, we welcome that as well. It's solomoshow@gmail.com. And as always, all the links that we discussed today and the links that we just mentioned to our various social channels can be found in the show notes, which are available either at solomoshow.com or inside of your podcast player of choice. There should be an option to view show notes, and you will have all the links that we mentioned today available, as well as links to our various places where you can connect with us online. And with that, we hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you next week.
Take care.